Welcome to Coffee Break. Thoughtful conversations for a busy world. Let's begin.
Okay, so picture this scenario. It's a Tuesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, a catastrophic Tuesday or anything. It's just a standard high-velocity Tuesday in the life of a modern professional.
Right, the usual chaos.
Usual chaos. You're walking into the office, or maybe you're just logging onto a Zoom call, and your mind is already like 3 steps ahead of your body.
The cognitive load is already hitting its max before the workday has even really started.
Exactly. You're thinking about the quarterly projections that are due on Thursday. You're thinking about that weird noise your car made on the commute this morning.
I'm wondering if that's going to be a $1,000 problem.
Yes. And you're also realizing you forgot to send that one critical email last night. And on top of all of that, you haven't even had breakfast.
So your cortisol's already spiking, your heart rate's a little bit elevated, you're basically running on caffeine and pure adrenaline.
Totally. So you sit down, you open your laptop, and someone looks at you. Could be a peer, a direct report, a client, whatever, and they ask the most standard question in the world.
Hey, how are you doing?
And without a single millisecond of hesitation, without even checking in with your actual internal state, the words just fall out of your mouth. I'm fine. How are you?
It's probably the most common lie in the English language.
Right.
And, it might also be the most dangerous one, especially if we look at the data on burnout and long-term health outcomes.
See, that's a big statement. Dangerous. Yeah. But that's exactly why we're here today. We're doing a deep dive into a piece of material titled The Emotional Tax of Perpetual Composure. And we're specifically pulling insights from the analysis in Coffee Break 050.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission today is to really sort of dismantle this reflex. We're not just talking about being polite or, social etiquette. We're talking about a systemic survival strategy that is quietly burning out some of the best people in the workforce.
And I think we need to set the context right away, because I know who listens to our deep dives. We are not talking about complaining. We aren't advocating for, walking into a board meeting and just weeping about your childhood trauma or treating your colleagues like your therapist.
Yep.
This is targeted specifically at the high performers, the entrepreneurs, the C-suite leaders, the parents who are juggling 2 careers, the people who have decided either consciously or subconsciously that emotions are a liability, that they're an inefficiency in their operating system.
Right. If your internal monologue sounds anything like, I don't have time to have feelings, I have a P&L to manage, then this is for you.
Yeah.
Because what really grabbed me in this source material is the framing. It doesn't frame I'm fine as just a social nicety. It frames it as a survival strategy. And that, to me, implies there's a threat. What exactly are we trying to survive when we say those 2 little words?
We're trying to survive the perceived loss of status. The core thesis of the source, and we'll keep coming back to this, is ignoring feelings doesn't make them disappear. It just delays the bill.
Delays the bill. I love that metaphor.
We're going to spend a lot of time on that financial metaphor today, because in business, we all know that deferred maintenance is always more expensive than preventative maintenance. Always.
Of course.
And yet, for some reason, we refuse to apply that same logic to our own psychology.
It's like we're creating this accumulated debt of stress. But okay, before we get to the debt itself, let's talk about the asset we think we're protecting. The source talks about perpetual composure.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds so good, doesn't it? It sounds like a stoic ideal. Why is this seen as the gold standard in the professional world?
Well, think about the environments that you, our listeners, operate in. They're high stakes, they're high pressure, high visibility.
Absolutely.
And in those environments, predictability is currency. To be perpetually composed means you're consistent, you're reliable, you're unshakable.
You're the keel of the ship.
You're the keel of the ship. Exactly. And if the keel starts to shake, the whole ship feels unsafe. So we learn really early on, maybe in our first management roles, or even back in school, that showing a crack in the armor is dangerous. It signals instability.
It's a credibility issue, right?
Yeah.
The fear is that if I admit I'm overwhelmed, then I look incompetent. I look like I can't actually handle the job I'm in.
Precisely. And the source breaks this down even further into a concept it calls minimizing. It says high-performing adults minimize their internal reality for basically 3 reasons.
Okay.
First, to appear strong. That's the leadership aspect we just talked about.
Yeah.
Second, to appear capable. That's the competence piece. But the third one, The third one is the most insidious, I think, and it's the one we really need to dissect. We minimize to be low maintenance.
Oof, that one hit me hard when I read it. Low maintenance.
Yeah.
It implies that just having needs or having stress makes you a burden.
Mm-hmm.
It's this deep-seated desire to never be the bottleneck, to never be the problem in the room that someone else has to solve.
It's become the badge of honor for the modern worker, hasn't it? I am frictionless.
Yes.
I require zero emotional labor from my boss or from my team. We genuinely believe that by suppressing our needs, we're being good employees or good partners or good friends. But the source argues this low-maintenance mindset is actually a trap.
How so?
It compares it to putting a piece of black electrical tape over the check engine light in your car.
Which is a very tempting solution when you're busy. You see the light, you don't have time to go to the mechanic, so you just cover it up.
And the logic is so seductive because for a while it actually works. That's the trap.
Right, the car keeps running.
The car keeps running, you put the tape over the light, you drive another 50 miles, you hit your KPIs for the day, you make dinner for the family, you finish the presentation, and you think to yourself, see? The tape worked. My anxiety was just a distraction. I pushed through.
But the mechanics under the hood haven't changed at all. The pistons are still misfiring, the oil is still turning to sludge.
Exactly. You haven't fixed the engine, you've just removed the indicator. And this really brings us to the mechanics of the I'm fine reflex itself.
Mm-hmm.
The source points out that for most of us, this isn't some calculated deception. You're not standing there thinking, I am currently suffering from high cortisol levels, but I will now deceive this person in order to maintain the social order. It happens faster than thought.
It's a neural shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
It's just pure muscle memory.
It's an algorithm. And we have to look at the efficiency model here. In a busy day, an honest answer is inefficient.
That's a great way to put it.
Think about it. If you ask me how I am and I say, actually, I'm incredibly anxious about this merger, I haven't slept in 3 days, and I'm starting to question all my career choices, what have I just done to our interaction?
You've completely derailed it. You've stopped the meeting before it even started. You've created a whole new situation that now needs to be managed.
I've created friction, I've invited a conversation, I've invited scrutiny, and potentially I've invited help, which for hyper-independent people is terrifying because help implies you couldn't do it alone.
Right.
Saying, I'm fine, is an efficiency hack. It just slams the door on all that potential intimacy or scrutiny so we can get back to the task list. It resolves the interaction with the absolute minimum viable energy expenditure.
So in the short term, it's actually a highly effective tool. It works, it gets people off your back, and lets you get back to your work.
It is highly effective externally. And this is the major disconnect the source highlights. We become absolute masters of the external interface, the public face.
Mm-hmm.
The source has this line, looking strong on the outside doesn't always mean you're okay on the inside.
Mm.
Now, that sounds like a platitude, but for a high performer, it's a whole lifestyle. You cultivate this duality.
The public face versus the private reality. I think every single person listening has felt that specific dissonance.
Oh, absolutely.
You're smiling at a client dinner, you're being charming, you're telling jokes, but inside your head there's this screaming static, a sense of dread, or maybe just a profound, bone-deep exhaustion.
And that dissonance is expensive. That is the tax in the title, the emotional tax. The human brain is just not designed to run two opposing reality simulations at the same time for long periods.
That's too much processing power.
Way too much. If your internal reality is screaming threat, danger, exhaustion, and your external reality is projecting calm, control, smile, your brain has to constantly build a bridge over that gap. And that bridge costs glucose, it costs executive function, it consumes real biological resources to maintain the lie.
It's like running a really heavy background process on your computer.
Yeah.
You might just be typing in a Word doc and it looks fine on the screen, but the fan is just screaming because you're rendering 4K video in the background.
And what happens eventually? The system throttles.
Yeah.
Or it overheats. This leads us right into the concept of emotional suppression. And I want to challenge this a bit because I know a lot of leaders listening would say, hang on, I'm not suppressing, I'm compartmentalizing. And compartmentalization is a necessary skill for a leader. Is the source saying, we can't do that?
That's a really crucial distinction. So what is the difference between healthy compartmentalization and unhealthy suppression?
I think it comes down to intent and resolution. Compartmentalization is, I am feeling this stress, but I'm going to put it in a box for now so I can focus on this meeting. And I promise myself I will open that box at 6 o'clock tonight and deal with it.
Okay, so it's a scheduling decision.
It's a scheduling decision. Suppression, on the other hand, is I am feeling this stress, so I'm going to shove it in a box, tape that box shut, throw the box into the ocean, and then pretend the box never existed in the first place.
One is strategic delay, the other is just pure denial of reality.
Correct. And the source argues that what we so often call discipline is actually just avoidance wearing a business suit.
Huh. I like that.
We think we're being tough, but we're just being avoidant. And the result of this chronic suppression is what the source calls quiet exhaustion.
Quiet exhaustion.
Yeah.
I think I underlined that 3 times in my notes.
Yeah.
It's such a specific and accurate flavor of burnout.
It really is. We're all used to the media portrayal of burnout, right? The loud burnout.
The Jerry Maguire moment.
Yes. The screaming match in the hallway. The day you just physically cannot get out of bed. That's easy to spot. It compels attention from others.
Right. That's the explosion. It demands a response.
Quiet exhaustion is the implosion. It's the slow leak. You show up every single day. You're functional. You answer the emails. You make the decisions. But the color is slowly draining out of your world. You lose your creativity, you lose your empathy, you start to become robotic. And the really dangerous part, the quiet part, is that nobody knows.
Because you're still fine. You're still delivering the work.
You are better than fine. You are perpetually composed. So your boss looks at you and thinks, wow, they are handling this workload so effortlessly. Let's give them the Bravo project too.
Oh, that's a trap.
It is. Because you have signaled to the world that you have infinite capacity, the system will give you an infinite load.
You become a victim of your own competence.
You do. You enter this danger zone where you are operating on fumes, but the dashboard still reads full to everyone watching you. And that is where the truly catastrophic failures happen. Not the loud ones, but the sudden heart attacks at 45.
Yeah.
The sudden divorces where the partner says, I thought we were happy, you never said anything was wrong. The sudden ethical lapses because your judgment was so impaired by fatigue you couldn't see straight.
That is genuinely terrifying. Yeah. It's the idea that the silence is what kills you. And this transitions us perfectly to the central metaphor of this entire deep dive, the delayed bill. The source says ignoring feelings doesn't make them disappear. It just delays the bill. Let's really unpack this financial analogy because I think it frames the problem in a way that business-minded people can really grasp.
It's the most accurate model we have for what's called somatic psychology, the connection between the mind and the body.
Okay.
So think of stress not just as a feeling, but as a physiological currency. When you have a stressful event, a conflict with a colleague, a looming deadline, a project failure, your body releases cortisol and adrenaline. That is a charge on your credit card.
Okay, so the stress event is the transaction. Makes sense.
Right. And processing that stress, talking about it, exercising, crying, getting a good night's sleep, resolving the conflict that is paying the bill, it returns your body to baseline, to homeostasis.
So when we just say, I'm fine and push it down,
we're making the minimum payment. Or worse, we're just ignoring the bill entirely. But the debt remains on the ledger. The cortisol is still circulating in your bloodstream. The tension is still locked in your shoulders.
And this is where the delayed bill part gets scary.
Interest.
Emotional compound interest.
Wow.
And it is predatory lending. The interest rate on unprocessed stress is astronomical. You think you're saving 20 minutes today by not having that difficult conversation with your spouse?
Right.
You think you're saving an hour by not going to the gym to work off the adrenaline from that horrible meeting? But that debt compounds. It grows.
So what does it look like when the bank finally calls in the loan? When the bill comes due?
It rarely looks like the original stressor. And that's the trick. That's why it's so hard to connect the dots.
What do you mean?
You might suppress your anger at work for 10 years straight. The bill doesn't come due as anger. It comes due as a chronic autoimmune disorder.
Right.
It comes due as severe insomnia. It comes due as a full-blown panic attack in the frozen food aisle of the grocery store on a Saturday morning when, consciously, nothing is actually wrong.
That's the body just saying, okay, I'm done. I am foreclosing on this property. The source is very, very clear on this point. You cannot fool your nervous system. You can fool your board of directors. You can fool your Instagram followers. You can even fool your own conscious prefrontal cortex. But the amygdala, the autonomic nervous system, it keeps the score. It is an unerring accountant.
So the I'm fine strategy is actually a false economy.
Totally.
We think we're being efficient. I don't have time to deal with this right now. but we're actually making the most expensive choice possible in the long run. We're borrowing against our future health to pay for our current comfort.
And not just our health, we're borrowing against our future performance. And this is the part that usually gets the attention of the high achievers listening to this.
Okay.
The source dives into how this impacts your external results. It directly affects your decision-making and your relationships.
Let's talk about decision-making first, because I think a lot of us believe that suppressing emotions makes us more rational.
The Spock approach.
The Spock approach. I'm keeping feelings out of it so I can look at the data objectively. We think emotion is just noise, and logic is the signal.
That is a fundamental misunderstanding of how human cognition actually works. Neurobiologically, you cannot separate emotion from decision-making. They're intertwined.
So things like gut feeling or intuition.
Or red flags. These are all emotional signals derived from subconscious pattern recognition. Your brain has processed millions of data points and is giving you a summary in the form of a feeling.
Oh, okay.
If your default strategy is perpetual composure, you are actively suppressing that emotional state. You're cutting the wire to a massive data set.
You're flying blind. You're intentionally ignoring your own sensors.
You are operating with partial data. Let's say you're in a negotiation for a big deal. You feel a tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach. If your strategy is, I'm fine, push through, you tell yourself, ignore that. That's just stress. I'm fine. Focus on the spreadsheet. You sign the deal. 6 months later, it completely falls apart because of a cultural mismatch that your subconscious picked up on, but your conscious mind suppressed.
So by trying to be more rational, you actually became less rational because you ignored a valid data point from your own system.
Exactly. And there's more. That cognitive load we talked about earlier, maintaining the facade.
The background process.
If you are using, say, 30% of your brain power just to maintain the facade of I'm fine, that is 30% less brain power available for creative problem solving, for strategic foresight, for lateral thinking.
So tax makes you dumber.
It literally makes you dumber. It demonstrably reduces your working memory and executive function.
That's a really compelling argument for the ROI of emotional honesty. It's not a soft skill, it's a strategic advantage.
It is.
Now, what about the relationship side? The source talks about the ripple effect of this avoidance.
This goes right back to the shield metaphor we started with. I'm fine is a shield. It protects you from scrutiny. But a shield is, by its nature, a barrier. You can't shake hands through a shield. You can't hug someone through a shield.
You cannot build trust through a shield.
And trust is the absolute currency of leadership. If you are a leader who never struggles, who never admits a mistake, who never shows stress, you think you're projecting strength. But the source argues you are actually projecting alienation.
And it's like the uncanny valley of leadership.
Yes. That's a perfect way to describe it. If you're too perfect, you seem synthetic, inhuman. And then there's a second, even more damaging ripple effect.
Okay.
If the boss is always fine, the team feels unsafe admitting when they are not.
Oh, that's huge. You set the culture.
You implicitly tell your team the standard of performance here is inhuman perfection. So when your junior developer is drowning in a project, they won't tell you. They'll hide it. They will hide the bug. They will hide the delay.
Because they don't want to be seen as the weak one in a culture of supposedly strong people.
So your strength actually creates a massive single point of failure. You are blinding yourself to the operational realities of your own team because you've made it psychologically unsafe to report bad news.
Wow.
Strategic vulnerability invites truth. If a leader says, I'm actually really worried about this Q4 timeline, it gives permission for the rest of the team to say, yeah, actually, we are too, and here's why.
And now you have data. Now you can solve the problem together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Just hides the problem until it's way too late to fix.
This all leads us to what I think is the most nuanced and important part of the source material. It tackles the big objection I know some listeners have right now, which is, okay, I get it, but I just don't want to overshare. I'm a private person. And the Force makes this brilliant distinction between privacy and isolation.
This is the critical distinction for anyone listening, because we are not, I repeat, not advocating for some let it all hang out culture. That can be just as toxic.
Of course. Oversharing can be a real burden on others. We all know that person who treats the morning stand-up meeting like a confessional, and it just makes everyone uncomfortable.
Right. So the source defines privacy as a choice. It's about having healthy boundaries. Privacy is having a wall around your inner world, but that wall has a door. You have the key. You choose who gets to come in and when.
So you can acknowledge, I am dealing with a personal matter without having to give all the graphic detail.
Exactly. That is privacy. It's healthy. It's powerful. It's you being in control.
And isolation. What's the difference?
Isolation is a prison. Isolation is the belief that you cannot let anyone in. It's the absence of choice. It's the deep-seated belief that if you show any vulnerability, you will be rejected or fired or diminished. Isolation is locking that door and swallowing the key.
I love that imagery. Privacy is controlling the door. Isolation is sealing it shut permanently.
And you can be a deeply private person. You can be an introvert. You can be a stoic without being emotionally isolated. You can have very strict boundaries at work, but still have a mentor or a therapist or a spouse with whom you are fully transparent.
Right.
The I'm fine trap creates isolation because you start to believe your own press release. You start to think you have to be fine, even to yourself, and that's when it gets dangerous.
The source calls this the trap of independence.
And it's such a Western, very entrepreneurial trap. We conflate independence with solitude, but true independence includes the ability to resource yourself effectively. Look, if you're building a house, being independent doesn't mean you have to personally mill the lumber, pour the concrete, and wire all the electricity yourself. That's not being independent. That's just being inefficient.
It's just being stubborn.
It is. Resourcing yourself means knowing when to bring in an expert, a consultant, a friend, a doctor. Isolation cuts you off from all your resources. It leaves you fighting a war with zero reinforcements, and eventually you will be overrun.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the pathology. We know why we do it. It's a reflex for efficiency and protecting our status. We know the cost, this quiet exhaustion, poor decision-making, and this high-interest emotional debt.
Right.
We know the difference between healthy privacy and dangerous isolation. So now we have to talk about the cure.
The how. Because awareness without action is just another form of anxiety.
I couldn't agree more. The source offers a section called Acknowledgement Without Drama. I love this title because it speaks directly to our biggest fear. We fear that if we stop saying, I'm fine, we will somehow become dramatic. We fear the slippery slope.
We fear the floodgates. If I open this door, just a crack, the whole ocean is going to come rushing through.
So how do we open the door without drowning? What's the first step?
Strategy number one is entirely internal. It starts with a self-audit. We have to disrupt the autopilot.
The reflex we talked about at the very beginning.
Exactly. So the next time you hear the question, how are you? Or even just when you feel that tightness in your chest or that knot in your stomach, you have to pause. The source suggests a micropause. Just 2 seconds.
2 seconds.
And in that tiny space, you ask yourself the real question, am I actually fine?
And you don't have to say the answer out loud yet? This is just for you.
No, this is just for you. This is about breaking the cycle of self-delusion. You have to be willing to look at your own dashboard and admit that the check engine light is on. I am not fine, I am anxious. Or, I'm not fine, I am angry.
Naming the emotion.
Just naming the emotion engages the prefrontal cortex and has been shown to actually lower the stress response. It's a technique called effect labeling.
So just admitting it to yourself is the first payment on the bill.
It's the first installment, exactly. It stops the suppression cycle in its tracks. It acknowledges the debt exists.
Okay, that's a powerful first step.
Yep.
But eventually we do have to talk to other people. We can't just stare silently for 2 seconds in every conversation. What's step 2?
Step 2 is what the source calls accurate reporting. This is probably my favorite tool from the whole deep dive. It strips the drama and the emotion out of the equation and reframes your internal state as just data.
I love this because it sounds like engineering. It depersonalizes the feeling, which makes it feel safer.
It is engineering. It's capacity planning for your own human system. Instead of the binary choice between I'm fine, which is a lie, and I'm falling apart, which feels unsafe and unprofessional, you use neutral, factual descriptors of your current operating status.
Okay, give us the scripts. What does this actually sound like in a meeting or one-on-one?
All right, script 1, the most versatile. I'm at capacity.
I'm at capacity.
It's simple, it's elegant. It doesn't say I'm sad or I'm overwhelmed. It says, my bucket is full, do not add more water.
That is so empowering. It's a volume statement, not a weakness statement. It almost implies I am fully utilized, which is a good thing in business terms, but it very clearly sets a limit.
Precisely. Okay, script 2. I'm processing a lot right now.
I like that one.
This is great for when you're a bit quiet or distracted in a meeting. It tells your team, I'm not ignoring you. My CPU is just running a very complex background task at the moment.
Or how about something like, I'm feeling the pressure on this deadline.
Yes, that's a perfect example. And notice what that does. It validates the reality of the situation. It aligns you with your team, because they're probably feeling it too. It says, this is a high-pressure situation. I feel it, and it's okay that you feel it. It validates their stress without you ever having to complain.
These are all just status updates. It's like saying, system is running hot, bandwidth is low, latency is a bit high today.
Exactly. And if you communicate like that, you are treated like a professional. You're just giving your team and your manager the data they need to adjust expectations and allocate resources effectively.
That's a great point. If you just say, I'm fine, and then you miss the deadline, you look incompetent. But if you say, I'm at capacity, and then you ask for help, you look like a leader. You look like a manager.
And it prevents the delayed bill. Because by speaking it, even in that clinical, data-driven way, you are releasing a little bit of the pressure. You're opening the valve just a tiny bit.
That's the real goal here. It's about functionality.
Yeah.
It's about longevity. We are not trying to turn the office into a group therapy circle.
Not at all. We're trying to keep the high-performance engine running for 20 years, not just 20 months before it burns out.
It's just maintenance. It's changing the oil.
Yeah.
It's not considered drama to change the oil in a Ferrari. It's considered necessary for performance.
And if you don't change the oil, you don't deserve the Ferrari.
Ooh, that's good. That's a bumper sticker right there.
But it's true, isn't it? We treat our bodies and our minds with so much less respect than we treat our expensive equipment. We expect them to run indefinitely without any maintenance, and then we act shocked when they finally seize up on us.
This has been, honestly, a bit of a mirror for me today. I catch myself saying, I'm fine, probably 10 times a day without even thinking about it.
I think we all do. It's deep cultural conditioning. But the good news is that conditioning can be overwritten with new habits.
So let's recap the journey we've been on for everyone. We started with that I'm fine reflex, understanding it not as a simple lie, but as a survival shield we use to protect our status and our efficiency.
We looked at the mechanics of that external versus internal gap and the emotional tax that it levies, draining our battery while we pretend to be perfect. And we discussed quiet exhaustion, that dangerous, silent form of burnout.
We went deep on the delayed bill. The idea that unprocessed stress accumulates this high-interest debt that eventually bankrupts our health, our relationships, or our careers.
We examine the cost to our decision-making, how suppressing our intuition blinds us to critical data, and the cost to our culture, how a leader's perfectionism creates isolation for the whole team.
We clarified that crucial difference between privacy, which is like closing the door, and isolation, which is locking it and throwing away the key. And finally, we gave you the accurate reporting toolkit.
I'm at capacity, I'm processing a lot. Treating your emotional state like logistics data. It's a huge shift from just acting strong to actually being sustainable.
So here is the final provocative thought we want to leave you with today. We want to give you a specific, tangible challenge based on this source material.
The challenge is this. The next time, and I mean the very next time, which will probably be within an hour of finishing this deep dive, someone asks you, how are you? I want you to just notice the reflex. Feel the words, I'm fine, loading up in the chamber.
The autocomplete.
Interrupt the autocomplete just for a second. Now, you don't have to spill your guts. You can still say, I'm fine out loud if the situation demands it, if it's the cashier at the grocery store.
Right.
But I want you to mentally put an asterisk next to it. Say to yourself, I am telling them I'm fine, but the actual truth is I am worried about X, or the truth is I'm exhausted.
Break the streak of self-deception first.
And then ask yourself this question. If your emotional capacity was a bank account, are you currently in the black? Or are you operating in overdraft? Because if you're in overdraft, you cannot keep spending. You have to make a deposit.
What does a deposit look like?
It could be anything. Go for a walk. Call a friend you can be honest with. Tell your partner the truth. Pay the bill before the bank decides to close your account for good.
That is the mission. Sustainable high performance. Stay curious, stay honest, and please stop paying interest on stress you don't need to be hoarding. We'll see you in the next deep dive.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Coffee Break. If this conversation stayed with you, you can find more episodes here on the channel. Until next time, take care.